Welcome to the PJ Hoop Podcast. I'm your host, PJ. And first and foremost, if this is your very first time checking out my podcast, I want to let you guys know this is a basketball podcast. This is not an NBA podcast. So on my podcast, predominantly, yes, I'm covering the NBA, but I also like to go over college, high school, and international basketball. I want to give you guys the 4 segments that I like to go over week in and week out. First being a segment I like to call PJ's Echelon. Now in PJ's Echelon, essentially, it's just my power rankings. Week in and week out, I'll give you guys my top 10 teams, and understand that this list is a progressive list because I am not a perfect man. I am a progressive man. So keep that in mind as we go through that list week in and week out, and I'll give you guys the parameters for that list very shortly. Another segment that I go over week in and week out is a segment I like to call What's New. Now, What's New, I'm giving you some type of NBA history that may have happened over the last week, some type of NBA news that may have happened over the last week, or even me just wanting to rant about something. Another segment is a segment I like to call Games of the Week. Now, in Games of the Week, essentially, it's me giving you guys, literally, it's what it sounds like. I'm giving you guys some games that I'm looking forward to that week, or games that I really enjoyed watching over the last week, or games that had some type of significance as we obviously are we're getting ready to come out of the All-Star break soon. Obviously, the games are going to ramp up in the intensity and the importance of these games. So I have a lot of games of significance moving forward probably. Lastly, the last thing I like to go over is a segment I like to call In the Lab. Now, In the Lab, essentially, it's me talking about today's NBA rookies. I'm talking about international basketball, college basketball, or even high school basketball. I love In the Lab. That's one of my favorite segments. So those are the 4 segments I like to go over week in and week out. I also want to let you guys know that last week, obviously, was my little spin-off episode where I was talking about players' primes. I want to let you guys know my time away because I did go on a brief trip to Los Angeles, and just ironically, I was in LA literally the day after Luka got traded, so I got to kind of talk to people, engage with people down there. But I also want to let you guys know with that time away, I was also able to come up with more creative ideas to add to the pod. So I want to let you guys know I do have some things in the works. I think you guys will be pleased with the things I have, and once I have them pretty much set in stone, I'll present those ideas to you guys, and yeah, I think you guys really like it. Anyways, let's dive straight into today's episode. My very first segment on the chopping block is going to be a segment I like to call PJ's Echelon. Now, in PJ's Echelon, essentially, I use 4 criterias as I rank my top 10 teams week in and week out. And remember, this is a progressive list week in and week out. So the 4 parameters I like to use is strength of schedule, the eye test, statistically where your team sits, and then also the team's record. Okay, we're going to get straight into it. I don't want to waste any more time. My number 1 team this week is 42-9, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma right now, they're 6th in offensive efficiency, they're 1st in defensive efficiency, and they're 1st in net rating. They actually have the best record at home in the NBA right now at 23-3. They're still locking up on defense as well. They're leading the NBA still in steals, which I think they're averaging about 11 or 12 steals. I don't have it in front of me right now. I think they're averaging about 11 or 12 steals a game, but they're also only allowing opponents to shoot 43% from the field, which is the lowest in the NBA. Something that's really impressive too with Oklahoma City during clutch time basketball, which in the clutch is defined as 5 minutes left in the game, and the game is within 5 points. They're actually shooting the second best in 3-point percentage at 45.5%. OKC is number 1 this week for me on my power rankings. Number 2, this team is 37-16, and that is the Boston Celtics. Boston right now, they're 3rd in offensive efficiency, they're 5th in defensive efficiency, and they're 3rd in net rating. So something really interesting I've noticed with Boston is that they've been taking a lot less threes since the start of the new year. On the season, I think they were averaging about 50 three-point attempts a game. But since the start of the new year, they're only down to 44 a game, which is, I think it's pretty good. Right now, since the start of the new year, number 1 right now is Golden State. Their home record is very interesting. So from basically December of 2022 to April of 2024, their home record was 58-9. This season alone, they're 16-9 at home. I think honestly that's just them just coasting throughout the season. I'm not too worried about it, but I just wanted to throw that stat out to you guys. Also, they have the 2nd best winning percentage in the clutch. They're 16-9 in the clutch at 64%. Number 3. This team is 42-10, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland, they're first in offensive efficiency, they're eighth in defensive efficiency, and they're second in net rating. So they actually have the best record during clutch time. They're 16-6 at 70. That's a 73% win percentage. They're second in the NBA in field goal percentage at 50%, and they're still first in three-point percentage at 39.5%. Since the start of the new year, I don't have it in front of me, but I know since the start of the new year, their offensive numbers have slightly dipped, but their defense has risen. So that's, kind of cross each other out. They're second in pick and roll frequency at 22%, and they average the sixth fewest ISOs per game at only 5%. Number 4, this team is 34-18, and that is the New York Knicks. New York, right now, they're second in offensive efficiency. They're 16th in defensive efficiency, and they're 5th in net rating. So for me, I put them at number 4, slightly above Memphis. Yeah, Memphis will be 5 for me. I was debating between the two because I just like New York's quality of wins a little bit more. Over this last week, they did beat Memphis head-to-head. They blew them out, actually. They beat Houston and they beat Denver. And yes, they did get fried by the Lakers and the Celtics. But I just felt like their quality of wins were a little bit better than Memphis's over the last week. So that's why I got them slightly above Memphis. They average the 6th most post-ups per game at 5%. They average the 3rd fewest turnovers per game at 13. They have the 4th best winning percentage in the clutch at 11. They're 11-7 in the clutch at 61%. New York is number 4 this week for me. Number 5, this team is 35-17, and I just said it, the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis, right now, they're 5th in offensive efficiency. They're 7th in defensive efficiency, and they're 4th in net rating. So for me, like I said, over this last week, their quality of wins really didn't move me much. And also the eye test just really didn't move me much with this team. I'm happy to see Gigi Jackson starting to get into rhythm, which is very promising. I'm very happy about that. But they did beat the Bucks this last week. They beat the Rockets. They beat the Spurs. They beat the Raptors. But they did lose badly in their head-to-head with New York. And they got killed by the Thunder. I think that was yesterday. They got killed by the Thunder. Don't quote me on that, but they just got killed by the Thunder as well. But anyways, this team is first in transition offensive frequency at 25%. They average 34 points per game in transition. They're second in and one frequency as well in transition at about 3%. They do average the second most turnovers at 16.5, which has been pretty consistent this year for this team. And something very, to keep your eyes on is they have the second hardest remaining schedule. Number 6, this team is 34-19, and that is the Denver Nuggets. Denver, right now, they're 4th in offensive efficiency. They're 17th in defensive efficiency, and they're 6th in net rating. Right now, they're sporting the longest winning streak in the NBA at 6 games. They're first in assists at 31. They're first in field goal percentage at 51. They're 4th in three-point percentage at 38. And they have the 3rd hardest remaining schedule left in the NBA, so something to kind of be mindful of. They're 4-0 in overtime games. They're 16-6 since January 1st, which is the most wins in that span. Shout out to the Denver Nuggets. Number 7 on my list, and I believe this is the first time since the beginning of the year that this team is on my top 10, and this team is 31-19, and that is the Los Angeles Lakers. Los Angeles, right now, they're 9th in offensive efficiency. They're 18th in defensive efficiency, and they're 13th in net rating. So since January 1st, they're second in field goal percentage at 50%. They have the 5th best winning percentage in clutch time games at 14-9 at 61%. They're on a 5-game winning streak currently right now. They're 18-6 at home, and they get the Jazz twice back-to-back before the All-Star break, and they're also 9-1 in their last 10. So Los Angeles, they're doing their thing. I'm interested. Obviously, the whole Luka thing, we'll talk about that very briefly. But yeah, Los Angeles is number 7 this week. Number 8, this team is 33-20, and that is the Houston Rockets. Houston, right now, they're 14th in offensive efficiency. They're 4th in defensive efficiency, and they're 7th in net rating. So for me, I moved them down because they were struggling. They're on a 5-game losing streak. They just won. I think they just beat the Raptors, I think, last night. But yeah, they're on a 5-game winning streak, and it did not look good. Their offense has been struggling mightily, and it's been kind of hard just to watch it, But I'm hoping that them being a young team, I'm hoping they just have kind of just ran out of gas and just needs to get to the All-Star break and then come out of the break and be okay. That's where I'm at right now with it, but it's something for sure I'm monitoring, so I had to move them down because I don't know if they've just hit a wall or what, but we'll see. It's just something I want to throw out to you guys. I believe that coming out of the All-Star break, they may be okay. Anyways, they're first in rebounding at 48 a game. They're 8th in steals at 9. They 3rd fewest fast break points at 13. They have the 10th easiest remaining schedule left. Number 9, this team is 30-23, and that is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota right now, they're 13th in offensive efficiency. They're 6th in defensive efficiency. They're 8th in net rating, and they're 8-2. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're only allowing their opponents, they average 7th in opponents' field goal percentage at 46%. They're 5th in opponents' three-point percentage at 35%, allowing the 4th fewest points per game, too, at 108. They lost a lot of games in clutch, 7th worst winning percentage in the clutch at 15-18, 45.5%. But for me, what is that telling me? They're not, this is a good quality team. They're just losing close games, and I don't know. It's something, obviously, to monitor, obviously, because as we go to the second half of the year, games are going to be a lot closer going into the playoffs. But yeah, so Minnesota's nobody to snog at. And also, I like that they put Naz Reid in the starting lineup. I really like that because he's giving you pretty much not exactly what Cat was giving you, but he's doing a good job at filling in for that, you know. Number 10 is the Indiana Pacers. Indiana right now, they're 29-22. They're 10th in offensive efficiency. They're 19th in defensive efficiency, and they're 14th in net rating. Yeah, they lost to the Lakers. They played the Lakers on Saturday. They were in LA on Friday, so I didn't hold that over their head. Come on. Who wouldn't want to be in LA on a Friday night in the middle of the winter? Like, come on. It's LA. So I didn't hold that over their heads. I'm pretty sure they had a good time. They have the 6th best winning percentage in the clutch at 13-9, and that's 59%. Second best winning percentage since January 1st. They're 13-4 at 76.5% win percentage. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They have the 9th easiest remaining schedule, and that is my top 10. And the 2 teams I have on my bubble is the LA Clippers and then also the Milwaukee Bucks. They dropped out of my top 10 just because I haven't really liked what I've seen from them lately. And we'll see how down and how long Giannis is out for. You guys let me know down in the comment section below who's in your top 10 and who do you have on your bubble. My next segment is a segment I like to call What's New. Now, in What's New, I'm giving you some type of NBA history, some type of NBA news, or me ranting. Today, we're going to have a little bit of all of that. We're going to start today's episode off with, I want to give a shout out to Devin Booker because Devin Booker just became the Phoenix Suns all-time leading scorer when they played Portland last week. I also want to give a shout out to the Portland Trailblazers organization. They actually gave him a tribute video during a timeout for achieving that landmark. And you never see away teams do that for a visiting player. So I thought that was really, class personified for the organization to do that. So shout out to Devin Booker. Shout out to the Portland Trailblazers organization. Now, let's get into some of this trade stuff that's happened because obviously some big things have happened. Let's first start off talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers and them trading for DeAndre Hunter. So initially when I seen this, I just smiled because I literally told you guys this during the summer about the Cleveland Cavaliers that I felt like they needed a bigger wing. I felt like that. And I thought them drafting Jalen Tyson, I thought he was potentially going to be that. He hasn't really played for the team at all. But they grabbed DeAndre Hunter. I think that was a great grab for them. I want to put on the record that I do believe the Cleveland Cavaliers, I believe they're a year away. And I tell you guys they're a year away because of a couple things. One, this is the first year with Kenny Atkinson. So he needs to get to the playoffs with this team and really see how this team works in his system in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know obviously he's been to the playoffs before, but it's different when you have a different group of guys, okay? You guys are not dumb. You guys know that, okay? So I wanted to tell you guys that. I think because this is his first year. Also, this is the first year that I really feel like Evan Mobley has taken that leap to being, in my opinion, their best player. And he needs to get into the playoffs and see how that feels to be the go-to guy, the guy that the team depends on in the playoffs. So, and obviously they got to ingratiate DeAndre Hunter now too. But the main 2 things, the reason why I feel like they're a year away is because of Evan Mobley stepping up. This is his first year stepping up. And then also the Kenny Atkinson thing as well. So I think they're a year away. And what I mean by a year away, I think they're a year away from getting to the finals and potentially that 1 year away from winning the finals. If they get there now and they win it now, then I will gladly come on here and tell you guys I was wrong. Okay? I will gladly, no problem. But I believe they're a year away. But we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong. Anyways, I wanted to give a shout out to them for what they did. Also, I want to talk about the De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs thing. I think we've all heard rumblings about that. So I thought that was obviously a really good trade for the Spurs. But this kind of goes back on what I said again about the Spurs during my summer episode. I literally said I felt like this team needed a sharp shooter. And I still stand by that, even adding De'Aaron Fox to the mix. Obviously, Fox has improved his jumper, but he's not like a knockdown three-point shooter. I still believe this team is a Con Knipple or a Liam McNeely away But if my college fans, you guys know who those players are. If you don't, Liam McNeely, he's a small forward at UConn. He's a freshman. He went to Montverde. And then also Con Knipple, he's a small forward. He goes to Duke. And yeah, anyways, really good players. I think both of these players are probably going to be lottery picks. And I'm interested to see if the Spurs grab one of these players because I think these players would fit what they need, in my opinion. Because right now this team doesn't have that much shooting per se. Devin Vassell is a great mid-range shooter, not a great three-point shooter. Keldon Johnson is okay. He's an okay shooter. And Victor's Victor, you know what I'm saying? But they need a sharpshooter, in my opinion. But we'll see. Anyways, let's talk about the big dominoes, the whole Luka thing. Obviously, the shocker of all shockers is Luka going to the Lakers. Obviously, when this happened, I was at work, and I got the notification. I looked at my phone, and obviously, like everybody else, I was like, oh, Shams probably got hacked. But then when I started believing it, was maybe 60 seconds later, I see that Chris Haynes tweeted the same thing, and I was like, oh, no, this is real. This really happened. Anyways, let's go to the real stuff about it. So my initial thoughts was, okay, Luka's going there, AD's going there. Okay, where does this lead everything else? So I've been telling you guys for a while now, and over the summer, obviously Luka's time he was on the clock being in Dallas, which was no surprise. Obviously, it was a shocker that he got traded, but I told you guys they were on the clock with him. Now, where this leads me is, what does Kyrie Irving do? Mind you guys, Kyrie Irving this summer has a player option, and he wanted to go play with LeBron. Initially, he was going to go play with Bron, but he got traded to Dallas. So, does Kyrie option out of Dallas and go to LA, and then LeBron options out and allows Kyrie to sign with the Lakers? That's literally where my mind goes when I first seen this trade. I was like, oh, where does this leave Kyrie? Okay, wait a minute. I know LeBron, so that's something I want to throw out to you guys. I think right now, I don't have obviously no sources, but right now I would put that at a probably 50 to 65% chance, probably 60% chance that Kyrie either A, options out of his contract and goes to LA, or B, he does a sign and trade with Dallas to get to LA. That's where my mind's at, and I'm interested to see what happens there. Because do they have to trade Austin Reeves? Do they have to trade Rui? Who do they have to trade? And does Kyrie want to do that, or does he stay in Dallas and play with AD? Because I know initially, I think they were talking about him, Kyrie playing with AD and KD. So it's just interesting, a very interesting dynamic. And obviously, we know Kevin Durant potentially could be on his way out of the door in Phoenix. Where does that lead KD? I still think KD's probably list if he gets traded. Obviously, we can put Dallas on there because Kyrie and AD will be there. I think Houston is a real possibility because Houston has the assets to give to Phoenix for one, but also they also own two of Phoenix's first round picks. So I can see him going to Houston, and then also Houston this playoff run, I think it's going to expose their lack of offense. And what I mean by that, I think Houston, I told you guys this weeks ago, I feel like Houston is a team that doesn't know, they don't know who their go-to guy really is. Obviously, they give it to Jalen Green. Obviously, they give it to Şengün. Obviously, Amen Thompson has stepped up and shown that he can be potentially that number 2 option or maybe that number 1 option. But in the playoffs, when the game slows down, and you got to give the ball to a guy and say, take me there. Houston doesn't know who their guy is quite yet. And I think in the playoffs, it's going to be exposed. And even right now during this stretch, the offense has slipped quite a bit. But I can see them saying, okay, we need KD. We need a KD type of guy just to get us a bucket. And I think in the playoff, it could expose that. And then this summer, it could expose that possibility for them to go get KD. Because I know Houston didn't want to trade for KD during this trade deadline because they wanted to see how their core is going to do. And we all know they're going to make the playoffs. And we'll see how far they go. I'm not going to talk too deep about that. But I do believe this playoff run is going to show this team playoff woes. Because in my opinion, what the playoffs does, I think the playoffs shows teams' weaknesses. I think the NBA Finals shows players' weaknesses. And I told you guys that a while back. But anyways, that's this. Sorry, I just went on kind of a little tangent. But long story short, Luka to LA. I really like the idea. I'm very interested to see who will be his long-term partner outside of LeBron. And then next year, obviously, the All-Star game is in LA. So that's going to be very exciting and magical to watch. And I also think Luka is one of these guys that he embodies the city of LA, in my opinion. He embodies, he has that toughness. He'll talk that talk. He'll walk that walk. He doesn't give me like a super like glitz and glam Hollywood feel to him, but he's somebody like, I can't say the word I want to say, but Luka can come to the cookout, if you know what I'm saying. Like, Luka's one of them ones, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be fun watching him at Staples, not Staples, but at Crypto, and all the celebrities being on the sideline, him talking to them. I think they're going to love him, man. I think they're going to love the show he puts on. I'm just really interested to see who is his running mate, because we know LeBron. I still think LeBron's retiring after next year. I still feel that, even though they got Luka. I still feel that. To me, it just lines up perfectly for him to do that. And yeah, maybe they do. I'm just interested to see who they get there, because they're going to get somebody to pair with Luka, because Luka's still really young. So I'm just interested. I'm interested to see how all this shakes out. I want to let you guys know too, next week for my What's New segment, I'm going to take some time and rant a little bit too about, and I want to talk to you guys about the New Orleans Pelicans, because I think there's things that need to be talked about this organization, and in my opinion, where the direction should be, where they're headed, where they're at right now, what I'm noticing. I want to take some time and talk about the Pelicans next week with you guys. But with that being said, obviously there's a bunch of things that's happened these last 2 weeks, but I don't want these episodes to be longer than 35 minutes. So you guys let me know down in the comment section below. You guys let me know, what did you guys see that what was new to you guys over these last 2 weeks? My next segment is a segment I like to call Games of the Week. Now, in Games of the Week, I'm giving you guys some games of some type of significance. I'm giving you guys games that I'm looking forward to this upcoming week, or I'm giving you guys games that I just really enjoyed. So there's been so many games that's happened over the last 2 weeks, so I really couldn't decide on 2 to 3 games that I really wanted to talk about. So this week for Games of the Week, I'm just going to give you guys games that I'm looking forward to this week, and we're going to just start it off, with tonight's game. So I got 2 games tonight that I'm really going to be watching. One being the most obvious, the Lakers versus the Jazz. It'll be Luka's very first game. I think LeBron's playing tonight as well, so I'll be paying attention to that. I am anticipating for him to put on a show against the Jazz. I'm just excited to watch. I think the LA crowd's going to love Luka, man. His passing, they're going to love it. They're going to love Luka. Also, another game tonight. I didn't write it down, but I'm going to be watching also the Boston versus the Miami Heat game. I'm interested by that game just because, for me at least, I like some of the Heat's young players. I really like Nikola Jovic. I love Khalil Ware. I've been a big Khalil Ware fan since my very, very first episode, which was a pre-draft episode. I told my co-host at the time, I let him know, like, hey, Khalil Ware's that guy. Like, this is my biggest sleeper, and he hasn't disappointed me at all. So I'm going to be watching that game tonight. And then some other games this week that I'm going to be looking forward to. Another one is the Knicks versus the Pacers. I'm interested to see if it's going to be a high-scoring game, first and foremost. So that's why I'm looking forward to watching that game. I think it's going to be a really good game. 2 playoff teams battling out, going into the All-Star break. Another game is the Spurs versus Boston. That is on Wednesday. Interested to see how the new-look Spurs look against the defending champs. I think that's going to be intriguing. That might be on national TV. I can't remember, but it might be. And then the last game this upcoming week that I'm looking forward to is the Grizzlies versus the Clippers. I'm looking forward to this matchup because, again, these are 2 budding teams trying to make the play. Well, the Grizzlies, as of right now, they're probably going to make the playoffs. The Clippers are trying to be out of the play-in and be in the playoff picture as well. So I'm really looking forward to that matchup as well. And it looks like my guy Kawhi is he get into a little bit of rhythm, and I think it's a good way. I think this matchup's a good matchup going into the All-Star break. And then obviously this weekend is the All-Star. It'll be the All-Star break. I think it's in San Francisco this year, if I remember correctly. I know next year's in LA. I'm really, really going to do my best. I really want to be at the one next year in LA, so I'm hoping next year I can be sitting here broadcasting to you guys from LA. But we will see what happens. Sorry, that's my Apple Home pods going off. But anyways, this is the end of the end of the segment of Games of the Week. You guys let me know down in the comment section below, what games are you guys looking forward to this week? My last segment is a segment I like to call In the Lab. Now, In the Lab essentially is me talking about today's NBA rookies, talking about high school, talking about college, or talking about international basketball. Today's version of In the Lab, we're actually going to cover all of that. I'm gonna do all of them. So we're gonna just start off with some recruiting / just news updates. Okay. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out and a round of applause to Leonard Hamilton of the Florida State Seminoles. Their head coach, he's actually going to be stepping down at the end of this year. And from what I learned, I guess an assistant coach on the Sacramento Kings coaching staff, his name is Luke, like Locks or something like that. He's going to be heavily involved in deciding who's the next head coach going to be at Florida State, which I thought was really interesting. Another thing, Elijah Arenas, the number 10 rated player in class of 2025, who actually recommitted from 2026. He actually committed to USC over these last 2 weeks. Another thing that I thought was really interesting is Nate Ament, which I believe he's either number 4 or number 5 rated player in class of 2025. He was at the Duke versus UNC game, and he actually canceled his visit to Kansas State following that game. So that's something just to keep in the back of your minds. I'm hoping Net chooses the Blue Devils. Another thing I thought was interesting is that Tony Parker is expected to introduce the NBA Euro proposal to several EuroLeague clubs in February, just before EuroLeague teams must decide on the long-term commitments. So I thought that was really interesting, something to keep our eyes on to see what happens there. Another interesting thing that happens, Baylor's recruit, I can't pronounce his name. I'm going to leave his name up in the corner for you guys, but his name is Tunde. I can't pronounce his last name. I can't even pronounce his first name. But anyways, he ended up becoming the California all-time leading scorer in high school basketball, passing DeMarcus Nelson. He ended up recording 3,463 career points. So I wanted to give a big shout out to him. Now, that's the end of the news. Let's go back. We're going to talk about some of the NBA rookies right now. So let's just dive straight into it. So Stephon Castle and Khalil Ware actually won Players of the Month for the month of January. So shout out to Khalil Ware. I want to talk about Castle a little bit and let you guys know how he's been doing over his last 15 games. Castle over his last 15 games has been averaging 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, shooting 45.5% from the field, 33% from 3, and 75% from the free throw line. Castle has just looked a lot more comfortable. I'm not surprised at all, because in my pre-draft episode and then even in my post-draft episode, I let you guys know, to me, at least in my opinion, his player comp to me is like a Jimmy Butler. That's kind of what I see when I watched him play at UConn last year. But he's doing really good. I'm very happy that they're able to keep him in that De'Aaron Fox trade. Another player is Montes Buzelis. He became the youngest player in NBA history to record 10-plus field goals without a miss. And, but he did that. I told you guys during my Chicago Bulls episode, I told you guys during my pre-draft episode and my post-draft episode how high I was on Montes Buzelis. So I'm not surprised over what he's done over his last 6 games since he's actually gotten more minutes. And even like 2 months ago, I got on here and I told you guys, like, I brought up Buzelis, and like, I didn't say he was disappointing, but I was disappointed that they weren't playing him. And you can go back and check that out. But anyways, over his last 6 games, Buzelis is averaging 15 points, 4 rebounds, 2 blocks, shooting 62% from the field, 46% from 3, shooting 76.5% from the free throw line. And he's just doing what I expect him to be doing. My boy Buzelis is a bucket. I love his mentality. I love his ball handles are underrated. I think when we look back on this draft in the next 3 years, people are going to be wondering, why did he fall so low? He should have never fallen that low, to be honest. But shout out to my boy Buzelis, and he's from Chicago. But I think his nationality, I think he's Lithuanian, I believe, if I remember correctly. Anyways, another player I want to give some love to is Isaiah Colliner. Isaiah Colliner was the number 1 rated player in his class. Last year, he was a freshman at USC as a point guard. But for me, the reason why I think he slipped in the draft, and I knew Utah got a steal when they drafted him, because I even told my friend who's a Utah fan, shout out to my boy Keola. But anyways, Isaiah Colliner is the number 1 rated player. He went to USC, and at USC 1, he was playing next to Boogie Ellis. Boogie Ellis was a upperclassman and a ball hog, in my opinion. But also Isaiah was dealing with injuries as well. But anyways, what he's done in Utah over his last 15 games since he's really been getting run, he's averaging 12 points, 9 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 steal, and 3 turnovers. He's shooting 46% from the field, shooting 27% from 3 and 76% from the free throw line. If you guys haven't had a chance to watch Isaiah Colliner play in Utah, you should go ahead and check my guy out. He's throwing dimes, and I do believe that's going to be their point guard of the future. I'm assuming I can't remember if Colin Sexton's going to be a free agent this summer or next summer, but you can guarantee probably for the rest of this year and going into next year, Isaiah Colliner will be their starting point guard, I believe. So I wanted to give some love to Isaiah because he's been balling. Also, another player I want to give a little bit of love to over his last 5 games is Keyshawn George of the Washington Wizards. Shout out to JJ because JJ is the one that told me to pay more attention to him, and he told me about that before our very first episode. He was like, yeah, I'm really high on Keyshawn George. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to check him out. I knew of Keyshawn, but I wasn't following him much, But anyways, over his last 5 games, he's performed very well. He's averaging 11 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block. He's shooting 49% from the field, 54% from 3, and 80% from the free throw line. Keyshawn George is he's like 6'8" or so, but he's guard. He got guard handle, but he's about a 6'8" guard / small forward. I liked him at Miami. I just wasn't really keen in on him the way JJ was. So I do want to give a shout out to JJ for that. Some other stuff I want to talk to you guys about is high school. So there was a big game against Prolific. It was Prolific Prep versus Utah. I think Utah Prep. Anyways, it was Darian Peterson versus AJ DeBontis, and they did not disappoint in this game at all. Darren Peterson. Sorry, I don't know why I keep calling him Darian. Darren Peterson. They ended up winning the game. He ended up hitting kind of like a side 3-point shot in the corner to basically give them a lead. He hit a 3, but in that game he went nuke. He had 58 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and like I just told you guys, he had the game-winning shot. They won the game 88-86 over Utah Prep. But don't get it twisted, AJ did not disappoint either. He had 49 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal. And in my opinion, I think I have already stated this on the pod, but if I haven't, I'm going to say it right now. I do believe the trio of AJ DeBontis, Cam Boozer, and Darren Peterson is a better trio than Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, and Cooper Flagg. You can book it. I think those 3 players are going to have better careers than the 3 that are coming out this upcoming year. So I think next year we could see one crazy tank job taking place in the NBA. But with that being the case, I want to let you guys know next week we will talk about the All-American game because the All-American rosters were announced. So I will talk about that with you guys next week. I'm also going to talk about Justin Edwards of the Philadelphia 76ers. He went to Kentucky, and he was a highly rated kid out of Kentucky too. Out of high school as well. Just didn't pan out at Kentucky, but he's been playing very well. Also, I'm going to talk about my guy Mohamed Dabone. He performed at the ULM U tournament, the 18U tournament. So I want to talk about his performance as well. But I want to leave it there because I don't want to make this episode any more longer. And then also next week, we're probably going to talk about we're going to check in probably on more of my preseason prospects that I'll keep my eyes out on. We're going to check on another 5 of those players. The 5 we're going to check out next week is Christian Anderson, Elliot Cadeau, Mackenzie Mbako, Xavier Booker, and then Jaden Quinitz. I can't pronounce his last name, but Jaden Q of the Arizona State Sun Devils. We're going to check in on those 5 prospects. Anyways, down in the comment section below, you guys let me know what news did you guys come across in high school, college, and international. But with that being the case, I want to thank you again for sticking with me and thank you for being patient. I know these last 2 weeks have been crazy, but with that being the case, PJ's out, and thank you for watching the PJ Hoop Podcast.